Hey everyone, welcome back. You know, uh, Staying focused, it feels like. It feels like it's getting harder and harder these days, like almost impossible with all the distractions around us.
Yeah, it's easy to feel like you're constantly battling to stay on task.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel like they're just bad at focusing.
Right, like it's some kind of personality flaw or something.
Yeah, like I'm just not wired to be one of those people who can just zone in and get things done.
Well, the good news is it's not about being wired a certain way. It's actually a skill.
Wait, really? So you're saying anyone can learn to be better at focusing?
Absolutely. It's like, think of it like any other skill, like learning to play an instrument or a sport. You get better with practice.
Okay, that's kind of encouraging. Because I'll admit, sometimes I feel like my brain just has a mind of its own. Like squirrel. Shiny object.
Well, that's actually because our brains are wired for novelty. Like from an evolutionary standpoint, it made sense to be constantly scanning for new information and potential threats.
Right. Caveman days. Always got to be on the lookout for saber-toothed tigers or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But in today's world, that wiring can be a bit of a liability because now those saber-toothed tigers are like, notifications and emails and social media.
And let's be honest, those things can be pretty tempting. It's like my phone is calling my name even when I know there's nothing important there. So it's not just that I'm lazy or lack willpower. It's like my brain is actively working against me.
It's not working against you, it's just following its programming. It's seeking out those little hits of dopamine.
Those dopamine hits are tough to resist, though.
They are. And the thing is, every time you give in to that temptation and switch your attention, it actually takes your brain a while to refocus.
So like if I'm working on a report and I check my email, it takes me a minute to get back in the groove.
More than a minute, actually. Studies have shown that it can take up to 23 minutes to fully regain your focus after a distraction.
23 minutes. You're kidding.
Oh, no, 23 minutes.
So basically, every time I glance at my phone, I'm throwing away almost half an hour of productivity.
It adds up, right?
That is kind of terrifying, actually.
It is. But the good news is, once you understand how your brain works, you can start to develop strategies to work with it, not against it.
Okay, so if our brains are kind of working against us like that, what can we do about it? How do we actually get better at focusing?
Well, there are definitely things you can do. Like a lot of it comes down to understanding your own patterns and kind of creating systems that support your focus.
The systems. Okay,
Yeah.
like what kind of systems? Give me an example.
Well, one really popular technique is called the Pomodoro Technique. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I think so. It's that tomato timer thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, you work in focus intervals. Like you set a timer for 25 minutes and you just focus on one task for that whole time, no distractions, and then you take a short break, like 5 minutes.
Okay, so it's kind of like interval training, but for your brain.
Exactly. It's like giving your brain a little sprint and then a little rest.
And I guess that makes sense, right? Like I know I can't really focus on one thing for hours and hours.
No one can. Well, most people can't. Our brains just aren't wired for that kind of sustained attention. So instead of trying to force it, you work with your natural rhythms.
So the Pomodoro Technique is like one system. What else? What about all those distractions? Like, how do I actually ignore my phone for 25 minutes straight?
Well, that's where creating a distraction-free environment comes in. So, like, think about all the things that usually distract you. Your phone, email notifications, social media, whatever.
Oh, the list goes on and on.
Right. So what can you do to minimize those distractions? Can you put your phone on Do Not Disturb? Can you close out of your email?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like out of sight, out of mind, right?
Exactly. And sometimes it's not just about the digital distractions, like maybe your workspace is cluttered or there's a lot of noise.
You know what? You're right. I'm actually pretty terrible about that. I'm like the king of clutter.
Yeah. Well, maybe think about how you can tidy up your workspace a bit. You might be surprised at how much of a difference it makes.
It's like decluttering your mind too, right?
Right. And then, on top of minimizing distractions, it's super important to set clear goals because when you know exactly what you're trying to achieve, it's a lot easier to stay focused.
Yeah, I'm all about to-do lists. But sometimes even with a list, I feel overwhelmed and I don't know where to start.
Well, in that case, it can be helpful to break those big tasks down into smaller, more manageable steps. Like instead of write a blog post, you might have write an outline, then write the introduction, and so on.
Oh, I get it. So instead of one big scary task, it's like a bunch of little steps.
Exactly. And each time you check one of those steps off your list, it gives you a little boost of motivation to keep going.
Okay, I like that. What about things like Mindfulness and meditation, I hear a lot about that these days. Does that actually help with focus?
Yeah, actually, it can be really helpful because meditation is all about training your attention. Like you're basically practicing noticing when your mind wanders and then gently guiding it back to the present moment.
So it's like building mental muscles for focus.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Hmm.
And you don't have to meditate for hours a day to see benefits. Like even just 5 or 10 minutes can make a difference.
Cool. I've actually been trying out some meditation apps lately.
Oh, awesome. That's great. And then, it's not just about what's going on in your head. Your physical health plays a huge role in your ability to focus too.
Wait, so like all that stuff about getting enough sleep and eating healthy, it really matters.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. If you're sleep deprived, you're not going to be able to focus as well. It's like trying to run your car on fumes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about diet? Any specific foods that are good for focus?
Well, a healthy, balanced diet is always good, of course,
Yeah.
but things like omega-3 fatty acids, which you can find in fish and nuts, have been shown to be really good for brain health.
Brain food. So maybe I should swap out those afternoon donuts for some walnuts.
Probably a good idea. And then there's exercise.
Okay, so we all know exercise is good for us. But how does it help with focus?
Well, exercise increases blood flow to the brain, and it also releases endorphins, which can improve your mood and energy levels.
So even if I'm feeling kind of sluggish and unfocused, a quick workout could help me snap out of it.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like even a brisk walk can make a difference.
That makes me think about that 23 minutes it takes to recover from a distraction. What if instead of just sitting there trying to force myself to refocus, I got up and moved around a bit?
I love that idea. That's really smart. It's like giving your brain a little reset button. So, we've got the Pomodoro Technique, creating a distraction-free environment, setting clear goals, practicing mindfulness, and taking care of our physical health. That's a lot of great stuff. Do you have any other tips or tricks up your sleeve?
Yeah, any other quick tips you could think of? I'm feeling pretty inspired to get my focus game on point now.
Well, one thing that can be really helpful is paying attention to the sounds around you. Like sometimes certain sounds can actually help you concentrate.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love putting on like some instrumental music or nature sounds when I need to focus. It's like it creates this little bubble of concentration.
Exactly. And there are actually some really cool apps out there that are specifically designed to create focus-enhancing soundscapes.
Oh yeah, I've used Noisely before. That one's great.
Yeah, Noisely's awesome. And then here's a super simple one that you can start using right away. It's called the 2-minute rule. Basically, if you have a task that you can do in 2 minutes or less, just do it right then.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So instead of adding it to my to-do list and letting it hang over my head, I just knock it out real quick.
Exactly. It's a great way to keep things from piling up and feeling overwhelming. And then the last thing I'll mention is something we touched on earlier, just paying attention to your natural energy levels throughout the day. We all have those times when we're feeling super productive and focused, and then other times when we're just like, brain fog.
Oh yeah, totally. Like I know for me, I'm definitely a morning person. By like 3 p.m., I'm pretty much useless.
Right. So the key is to try and schedule your most important tasks for those times when you know you're at your best, and then save the less demanding stuff for those lower energy times.
Work smarter, not harder.
Ah.
So
Wow, this has been so helpful. I feel like I've learned so much today.
I'm glad to hear that.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is just realizing that focus isn't this like magical thing that some people have and others don't. It's a skill that we can all develop.
Exactly. It's like a muscle that you can train.
And the more you practice it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. So don't get discouraged if you're not there yet. Just keep practicing, experiment with different strategies, and find what works best for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this amazing advice with us today.
It was my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, we hope you found this helpful too. Remember, staying focused is a journey, not a destination. So be kind to yourself, keep experimenting, and celebrate those moments of deep focus when they happen. And we'd love to hear from you. What are some of your favorite focus tips or tricks? Share them in the comments below. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.